Hey Goldies! So, I am doing a video that none of you guys asked for, but I really want to do because I think it'll be fun, which is reading a ton of my short stories for you, because I have a ton to prove to you guys that I actually have decent writing skills. Why not share with you guys some short stories I've written? I have this short story work booklet, I guess. It has not as good writing in it. We will get into that part of this video. This one is called A Strange Request at the Piano Bar. These are the word bank of things to include. Carnival, sprained, mask, oxidation, awkward, apple, juvenile, controversy, twirl, and sassafras. A Strange Request at a Piano Bar by Silver. I sighed as I sat down at the bar. It was still crazy to me how I sprained my ankle at the carnival. Boy, that was awkward, especially because there was controversy over whether I tripped over an apple or my own feet twirling. At work today, a juvenile asked me what oxidation was. I had to explain it was when an atom molecule or atom loses one or more electrons in a chemical reaction, which doesn't make any sense considering I turn trees like sassafras, for example, into medicine. I ordered my cocktail as I waited for my friend to arrive. Then I felt a buzz in my pocket. It read, "Hey Kay, I can't come tonight. My boss is making me work late tonight." I sighed sadly. Nora always had to cancel, but I used to work with her, and our boss always made us work surprise shifts. I texted her back saying, "It's okay, Nora. See you some other time." Across the room, I saw someone look at my sad expression. They smiled, waving at me. Then they walked up to the pianist. The piano player had a mask on, but it was obvious they were confused. But they shrugged and cleared their throat in the microphone. "I'll be playing I Won't Say I'm in Love" from Disney's Hercules. I laughed a little. It was clearly an attempt to cheer me up. It did, though. It was nice to laugh. A strange request at a piano bar. But I think that was the point. So the first one is Tea Party. I wrote this for a horror short story contest, and I actually got it published in a book, which was really exciting. That's my number one accomplishment at the moment. But okay, Tea Party. Our host poured cream into the tea, and the bitter taste lessened. When I glanced at Annie, I screamed. Her skin was melting off. An eyeball popped out of its socket, rolling onto the table. Her hair stuck out in clumps on her exposed skull. Her dress burned from acid. I started to feel strange. Our host walked back into the room. He swiftly chopped off my friend's head. "You should have listened." I looked into a silver platter to see I was the one melting. Right before our killer brought down his axe, one word came to my mind: cyanide. So yes, so I got the idea about cyanide from this creepy short story called The Landlady, Book 2, beginning. I didn't want a summer job, or a school job, or a weekend job, or just a job in general. I already have one, first class tripper, which for those of you asking what that is, it means I trip a lot. Over air, twigs so small they're barely noticeable, pebbles you have to look under a microscope to see, trash cans, cabinets, anything really. It sucks and takes over my day-to-day life. If only I could get paid for that. It's not like my second job pays me either. And no, my parents didn't force me to get it. They don't even know I have this job. Only 2 people do, excluding the monsters in Pre-Immortal God that hate me and want my job ID. It wasn't a choice either. Yes, it connects me to my grandmother Irene, but still, I didn't want this. Didn't even plan on it. But I did meet my best friend because of it, which I guess is nice. Plus, me and my sister are close again. And for those of you asking, what is this job? Well, you can call me the unlikeliest heroine. Because, the first book is Unlikely Heroine. Alex's Ojigia Dream. I walked into the room and my jaw dropped. It was a giant tea party, if you can even call it that, with sugar cookies, brownies, chocolate-covered strawberries, chocolate cookies, and so many other treats. It also had some cliché cucumber sandwiches and other finger foods. There was steak, chicken, pork, ham, tofu, Impossible burgers, eggs, hamburgers, cheeseburgers, bread, French toast, any food you could imagine. In the corner, there was a chocolate fountain. There were shelves stacked with Feastables and Joyride, along with every YouTuber's candies. There were all sorts of YouTuber merch, all of which I wanted to buy. And so many YouTubers there, like Mr. Beast, Ryan Trahan, Haley Pam, Be Amazed, Rosie Closey, The Odd Ones Out, Jaden Animations, Let Me Explain Studios, Hope Scope, Stephen He, XX Roblox Girl XX, and many, many more. The smells made my mouth water. You could smell the chocolate, cinnamon, meats, nuts, candies, and you'd think all together they'd smell wrong, but they didn't. Instead, they smelled like they were meant to be together. I heard critters running or flying around the open space. Everyone's voices were loud, but surprisingly not overwhelming. It was more calming because it was easygoing conversation. There was light music playing in the background. I felt people brush by me to find their friends or favorite YouTubers. I felt the grass between my toes, along with my comfortable hoodie and sweatpants. The dress code was whatever makes you comfortable. The warm sunshine calmed down my nerves. The air felt moist at the same time. There was a taste to the air. Wait, is that possible? It was sweet, like fruit punch. I walked over to the dessert table and tried one of the sugar cookies. It tasted amazing, like the best treat you could ever have, and it melted onto your tongue. The aftertaste was completely different than the cookie itself, but they went perfectly together. I looked up to see birds of every color flying high in the sky, with a million stars and constellations. The walls and ceiling were see-through glass, so you could see the beautiful garden that had every single flower in existence. The walls were decorated with vines and plants all over. I couldn't believe it was Monday. This day felt worthy of a Friday night out, but I guess some Mondays aren't bad. There was a cherry blossom tree in the entrance, with the branches spreading throughout the stadium, with some of the petals littering the floor. Someone tapped me on the shoulder, and I jumped out of my skin. I turned around to see a short woman with brown almond-shaped eyes and sharp features, which sometimes seemed creepy, but she was smiling and seemed friendly. "Hello, sorry to scare you, but what is your name so I can confirm you are on the guest list?" she asked. "Oh, hi, my name is Alexandra Callis," I said with a smile. She nodded. "Okay, well, overstimulated." Then I blinked rapidly, and the room I was standing in fully swallowed me. The smell of the food, colognes and perfumes, and the sound of voices, laughter, music, the chewing and swallowing of food, scraping of forks and spoons, the clinking of teacups, people breathing, and people's shoes against the floor. I could feel the rubbing of my dress against my skin, the warmth of a bunch of guests in one space, the cold of the door opening and closing, people brushing past to find their friends, and the tight heels I was wearing. There were chandeliers on the ceiling, paintings on the wall, lights from the dancing area, different colored dresses, tuxes, suits, rompers, etc. People dancing with smiles on their faces, different hairstyles, and the chestnut brown walls. It all felt extremely overwhelming. I grabbed a cup of water and drank it, hoping it would calm me down, but it was sparkling water and tasted like oranges. My face scrunched up in disgust. The fizziness of bubbles bothered my sensory differences. I took an appetizer, which was good, but everything else was so overwhelming. I felt my heart start to race, my breathing start to speed up, tears welled in my eyes, and I ran out of the room, taking off my heels. I pushed people out of my way. People looked at me in disgust, horror, and pity. All the reactions stunk. Being overstimulated was a normal thing. I ran out of the huge front doors and onto the steps. I sat on the last step, my bare feet touching the stone walkway. It was pouring rain, but the cool raindrops falling down my skin calmed me down a bit. So this is actually an excerpt from the very first book in Unlikely Heroine. I'm really proud of this. I hope that the rest of the book lives up to this excerpt. So before I read The Man by the Fire, which is the very special, the first good piece of writing I've ever written, I want to give you the backstory of how I figured it out. Where did it come from? I was at my grandparents' house. They had this giant fireplace. My grandpa loves making fires in it. So they had a giant fire. It was like one of the biggest ones I've ever seen. I was staring at it, like just staring into the fire, because why not, right? Who cares if my whatever they're called will burn? Like, who cares? Retinas. Who cares, guys? I'm joking. That is a very serious thing. I was just staring into it, and then my grandpa announced that he would be taking out his typewriter from when he was younger. We will be reading The Man by the Fire. The Man by the Fire. Short story by me. The old man stared into his fire. The flames were so bright it gave the rest of the stone fireplace a faint orange glow. He rocked slowly in his wooden rocking chair. People would visit, but he'd always stare into the flames. They'd ask what he saw. He'd always say, "Nothing, just the flames." But this time was different. He looked closer into the highest flame. There was an image of his wife, smiling brightly when they were in their 20s. Then there was one of him and his wife dancing in the rain in their 40s. He was smiling just as brightly as she was. Then there was one of him proposing to his wife. She had tears in her eyes and looked the happiest he'd ever seen her. Then there was an image of them at the altar. She looked so beautiful in her simple white wedding dress. Then there was an image of the two of them in their 60s. His wife sat in her rocking chair, crocheting their grandson a sweater. Then there was an image of one rocking chair, the man sitting in it, looking at the fireplace with visitors looking at him worriedly. There was more of the same picture, yet he got older and the visitors changed. He looked up at his grandson, who was all grown up, sadly. There were more pictures of his life flashing by, but the ones he was the happiest in were with his wife, and the ones where he was the loneliest were without her. He looked in the flames once again. It was a picture of her telling him something. Always make more joyful memories. But make sure not to stop just because I might be gone before you, he said softly, remembering her words. His grandson looked surprised. "Excuse me?" he asked. "That's what she would say to me, your grandmother, and that's what I'm going to do." So that's what he did, and he'd share stories with his grandson and his great-grandchildren, along with all his visitors. They'd always want to stay longer, but they'd have to leave at some point. But they always came back another day. Thank you all so much for listening to me read my silly, adorable short stories. Honestly, I'm really proud. I didn't realize how good some of these were until I made this video, because I read it out loud and I was like, oh my god. And like when I was reading the last one, The Man by the Fire, I felt warm and happy and safe and calm. Like it made me happy. I'm so proud that I was the one who wrote that. Like that I was the one who wrote all of these. Like they're all mine and my original short stories and everything. I'm so happy. This makes me really happy and very proud of myself, and I really hope you guys like them too. And I really hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.